So there's another part, whole nother part to likability that you can add. A very critical part too. So this is part 2, the likability in the context of the current social scene, etc. All right, here it is. Self-love. The degree of self-love that you have will determine how magnetic you are and how much people are attracted to yourself. So you have to like you first, or at the very least, be in a decent mood as much as is possible. I'm not here to say whether you should or should not do it based on what the real mood is. It's not my place. You might be in a place where you're feeling miserable, but you need to keep a smile on your face and you need to laugh. You might be in that space. So it's not my position to say that you should go against that if that's the way you're choosing to do what you do. If you're at that part of law of attraction or law of assumption or vibration, and you're starting at the ground level of trying to create a change and you're jumping smooth out of misery, then yes, you're on day 1 of becoming what you want to get yourself out of what you don't want. So in this, that's admirable and a very necessary step. So this is commendable, and essentially the self-love, even if it's pretentious, is still going to come across with some sense of admirability. It'll still be likable. If it's official, if it can be felt through and through, if the person, if you're really that kind of person, a peaceful person, or whatever you're trying to present. If you're really cool and you present yourself on camera as cool, then there it is. Or, you can become cool. You're working on yourself, you're putting in, whatever you got to do, you're getting your practice, wherever you are and whatever you do, you're getting better at it. And the idea of improvement has its own likability to it. This is a good message against perfectionism. If perfectionism is something you struggle with and find yourself trapped in, you're trying to make the perfect work, so you're just holding everything back and only using 10% of your potential because 100% of the framework isn't right, you can end up throwing yourself out of the game where you're one of the players on the team with a jersey. You can still end up keeping yourself on the bench when you don't have to be, because the game is always going on. All the quarters is running. All the refs are present. So that constant improvement, them seeing your journey, is a very critical part of it that you could show for the sake of transparency. And generally, if you're serious about what you do and you're doing it for a consistent amount of time, the improvement is going to show anyway. You're already going to have improvement. That's going to be on the house. That's coming with practice. Practice is going to perfect. And, we don't know whether or not what you do will be considered flawless. So, again, I'm not using that to say you got to be a perfectionist. Although the idea of striving for perfection now can kind of seem to be a counterintuitive statement. But it's not. It's just intended to push you to continue to improve. Improvement is something folks like, and one of those examples and many others is self-love. It'll show in, a couple of different forms. But essentially with self-love, it's not going to be about the person's appearance entirely, but it'll be more about the person's expression with their appearance. If you're just seeing a picture of a person, They can be dressed like anything, but because it's a still photo, you can't definitively deduce that person. You would be making remarks on a still photo, something that's static. Person might have been standing in the photo looking like a thug, but this person is probably an Ivy League graduate. But the photo is a still picture. It's just a picture. It's frozen in time. Whereas living, moving footage is you seeing how the person operates, thinks, behaves. What kind of gestures do they make? How do they express themselves? What's the animation of that body? How do they animate themselves? What is their behavior like? These things got to be put together too when you're just considering likability in terms of self-love. All of these things are going to pour into it. Sometimes self-hate is what you see with a lot of people that will be on the outs all the time. Sometimes this is what you see. Other times, they're probably just truly persecuted for, whatever they have going on and whoever they were associated with. But sometimes too, a person can just turn socially rabid, just foaming at the mouth, starving for conflict, thirsty for battle. They have a hankering for war, always ready to engage the enemy. This can be sometimes them trying to fight the enemy in themselves, and because that enemy is the hardest enemy to hit, but also the closest enemy to you, losing that fight every day can make you take it out on the world. You end up taking it out on the world because you couldn't conquer yourself, so you're gonna pick a fight with everybody else. Said, all right, well, I can't beat myself, and I bet you ain't nobody else gonna either. That's the approach that will take them from being a civilian to a barbarian quickly. And this kind of stuff gets seen, whether a person likes it or not. If they're going to be, cammed up, or even if they're not cammed up, you'll be able to hear it in their voice, whether or not, this and that, and you'll be able to discern. But this stuff goes into the likability too. Another part of likability is difference, uniqueness, distinction. Even if they don't know where you're coming from, because you can get a lot of that depending on what kind of work you do and what kind of craft you're in. Your work might be difficult to decipher, but sometimes difficulty doesn't automatically mean dislike. They're just trying to figure you out. And that whole mystery vibe of not being able to figure you out, that has a sense of newness to it. And that's a big thing that people like. People like things to be new. So if there's always these twists and turns, no matter how ridiculous they might seem, just the fact that they're twists and turns, can keep the person up on the road more so than just driving in a straight line for 15 hours, 17 hours straight, just a straight line, no turns, no on ramps, no off ramps. The road don't bend, it don't curve to the right, it don't curve to the left. There's no tolls, there's no traffic. It's just, you just driving in a void, an empty construct. Just driving in a blankness, in the fabric of oblivion. So you go ahead and express yourself, as they say, but you might have to express more than one you. Might be more than one you. You figure, well, this is not the chipper me on a rainy day. The chipper me on a sunny day. It's not payday. I'm broke. Why do anything? They gotta hear the broke you. They got to hear the you with the money in your pocket. You know, you could tell if you're authentic if they can't tell the difference. You know, if they can't tell the difference which is which, like, well, person always sound rich or they always sound opposite. If you always, whatever you always sound like is primarily what you are, that's consistency. And again, it goes back to branding. Like I talked about in part 1. This goes back to branding. How you're branding yourself before reality. We're just using social media as an example because it's one of the more relevant things to use for examples. There's probably more people online than are taking walks. So we're going to talk to everybody that's online. It's folks with social media accounts that you wouldn't even expect. So I'm not going to say the whole world is online, but enough of it is where you could say that and nobody would look at you funny. So figuring out your likability and using it stands to affect that many people. So use your likability. It's okay to become likable. Self-improvement, to the best of your ability, self-care, and care for others. If it's genuine, it won't be difficult. If that's not who you are, basically, it's going to take effort. And what does likes do? Get you more things. You ever been hired by someone who hates you? Maybe some have, but typically that's not how it goes. So we really don't like this person. He gonna be the superstar of our team. He gonna be starting. I don't like him though, but he's gonna be our CEO, our company. This guy, we bump heads with everything, but he's gonna be our general. He's gonna lead us. He's gonna lead us into war. That's our leader. I don't agree with anything he or she says or does, but that's who I'm up under. That's who I submit to. So you see how that sounds? So you stand to affect this many people just with genuine likability. Super T Sigma programming. How do you like that? Peace.